Among the most debated issues is the idea of changing the date that Australia Day is held on. Much has been said about the history surrounding the day and the different messages that hosting it on January 26 sends, especially to our indigenous brothers and sisters. Many alternatives to January 26 have been floated, most annoying of which is May 8th. Mate. Discussions around what exactly we should be celebrating have circulated. Personally, I couldn't care much less about the aesthetics and the symbolism that changing the date would produce. It seems far more offensive to me to concentrate on menial tribes such as what day of the year we light up the Barbie, while we apparently have decided that discussions about the above-average suicide rate and lack of access to basic necessities for Indigenous Australians deserve less attention, and receive less media attention as a result. Considering the debate won't easily go away without either conceding a change to our barbecue routines or very convincing arguments to the contrary, I see it fit to add my 2 cents and make the case for a December 3rd, Australia Day. Even though aesthetic crap like our public holidays means very little to me, our national holiday being a recognition of the landing of the First Fleet does tend to get on my nerves somewhat. What kind of a narcissist enjoys remembering the good old days of whips and chains, forced labour and starvation? How proud are we really of adding importance to the day that our ancestors marched off converted slave ships onto a strange and wholly unfamiliar land? How jovial are we truly that our ancestors were stripped from their family and their friends, loaded onto ships and cast into the unknown, all for lifting a loaf of bread? Is this honestly the day we wish to represent our nation? One that celebrates British colonial exploits instead of the hardened Aussie spirit? A day that represents chains and blood, a reminder of the harsh and the brutal realities of what it meant to be stripped of your home, whether you had it stolen from you or you stolen from it. We are a nation of convict converts, Indigenous captives bought here in iron and bound in chains, under an Australian sun that is yet to set on British imperialism. For as long as we celebrate January 26 as our Australia Day, Australia will remain the boot print of our British masters. So why not instead celebrate a day that our democracy was born out of the dust of the red soil plains and given life by those who would call themselves Australians proper? Whether you be first Australian or convict Australian, recent Australian or part of the old blood, shall we not each and every year pledge our unwavering loyalty to each other as they once did over 150 years ago? I grew up being taught the values of mateship, while we share a toast on the same day that that British lion bore teeth and wrought ruin and revealed himself a villain in our narratives. December 3rd marks the day we as British subjects and loyal Australians began to push back that British beast and felt for the first time the soft wind of independence. And on the crest of Bakery Hill, men and women of many nations hoist their flag, swore an oath, and united together for the struggle of Eureka. Men and women of many nations fought, died, lived, and served the cause of an independent and fairer Australia. Men and women of many nations stood before the British bullets and bore the brunt of the British cannons. Men and women of many nations stood together under one flag for a united cause. The maiden appearance of our standard, in the midst of armed men, sturdy, self-earth working diggers, of all languages and colours, was a fascinating object to behold. The earnestness of so many faces of all kinds of shape and colour. Her Majesty's forces were this morning fired upon by a large body of evil-disposed persons of various nations. The sands of time have sadly buried many of the inspiring lessons and memories of this momentous occasion, of so many different peoples pledging an oath of mateship to one another, fighting for each other, and dying for each other. The Eureka Rebellion showed the country how far we can go together for a fairer go for all. Politicians, unions, special interests with a special interest in using this special event in our history, the people's history, to their own benefit and for their own political games. It's far past time that we the people remember the oath we pledged to each other and remember that our national day is our day to remember our glory and our honourable triumphs, even if those triumphs were snatched from the cold clutches of a defeat. For it was the sacrifice of 22 of our own that showed the country and that British lion what it truly means to be a united peoples. For when 13 of our own were hoist before the Anglo judge and the Anglo jury, when 13 non-Anglos were kept in vile prison conditions and stripped to their humanity by those vicious occupiers, and even when those British authorities did what they could to stack the jury in their favour and rely on middle-class men who were thought to be the allies of those British Anglos, Australian patriotism, mateship and solidarity still found a way to shine its light upon our lucky country. What a spectacle it would have been to see John Joseph, an African-American, lifted high above the streets of Melbourne by a sea of patriots 10,000 strong, whooping and cheering his acquittal and escape from prosecution. For a fleeting moment in our history, white Australians stood firm against those British forefathers in defiance of their desires to blame the rebellion on what they considered rebellious and lesser outsiders, and in a frenzy of pure ecstasy, we took those who were unwanted and reviled by our masters, who in other countries were put to the whip and subjugated for a further century more. We hoist them upon our shoulders, and for a brief moment, we were a peoples united in spirit and inspired by each other, and we should be once more. Our eternal garden was once the rallying point for the poor and the downtrodden, for the would-be slaves and wannabe wanderers, for those dashed of hope and left adrift in a world that had forgotten and discarded them entirely. Although I wish not to brush away the truth that Europeans shouldn't have landed here in the first place, I also wish not to deny that it was the shared menace of the British that herded all peoples who were called Australia home into a common spirit. One that for a single moment united us underneath our very own flag. Today we cheer for and act as if we are so proud of our multicultural foundations, however have forgotten entirely the history of how we got here. We must cast our memories back and grab hold of the memories and the spirit of our greatest achievements that took our collective strength to accomplish. December 3rd, 1854 is a day that shaped us as a people. The trials of those magnificent 13 united us as a people, and today, December 3rd, shall remind us of what we can accomplish together. Bound outside the confines of language, culture, colour and creed, we are Australians, and we swear by the Southern Cross to stand truly by each other and fight to defend our rights and liberties.